Okay.
So we're joined for our first guest of the semester from Stillwater, Oklahoma at the Ferguson College of Agriculture, Dr. Courtney Brown. We thank you so much for joining us for the third time in this series. We got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. This is for our college career readiness class. We're in the Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resource Career Cluster, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County Schools, Madison Central, Rosa Scott, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule again.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is always a highlight for me to be able to connect back to my Southern roots and get to talk to the future. The students, hopefully, I'll see in my classrooms one day. So I'll just share a little bit. And I'd be remiss, we're so close to Black History Month, and not that we only need to talk about Black History and Black History Month. So I just want to share a little bit about what they did, talking about African Americans in agriculture, and then what you can do in it. And I'll kind of filter in a little bit of my journey as well. So for me, I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, grew up right outside of Memphis and Millington, and didn't really have any strong interest in agriculture. My parents had a background in it, but I didn't really know what agriculture was. I fell into it because I got a track scholarship at Austin Peay State University, and I was pre-vet. I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. So they told me, why don't you major in agriculture? And then you can kind of go the pre-vet track. So I said, okay, let's do that. And I quickly found out that that wasn't for me. So it's okay if some things weed you out and it's not the right match. I didn't want to take microbiology and, organic chemistry. That wasn't for me. So I quickly looked at a different route, but I got the chance to be around cows and animals, and that was like my initial love. So I said, I think I'm going to stay with this ag thing. I don't know what I'm going to do in it, but I'll stay with it. So ended up finishing with a degree in ag with a minor in communication arts, and took a year off to just kind of figure it out and see what it was that I wanted to do with this ag degree, and stumbled upon ag communications and found a master's program at Oklahoma State University. And that was the place where I really found my groove with understanding the historical significance of Black contribution in agriculture. And I will say that that is the key that probably kept me in agriculture
Wow.
specifically, because I loved animals and didn't know what that looked like, but really finding a pride in my lineage and my history, and then getting tapped in more with my family history just allowed me to see the value of contributions, which I'll touch on a little bit later. So I did that, and then I took some time and then came back for my PhD in agricultural education with the emphasis in agricultural leadership. So I'll share a little bit of like what I've done with all those degrees, because again, just faith has kind of guided me to figure out what that really looks like. So after I got my master's in ag communications, I did communications work at Langston University, which is our HBCU, and our ag land grant here in Oklahoma. So in doing that, I got to get more connected with Black farmers and kind of build on my research with Black people in ag and what that really looks like. So it just further got me in the trenches of appreciating my history in it. And then I started a nonprofit while I was there as well, called Agsposure, and that's when I brought agricultural programming to predominantly Black schools in Oklahoma City, and just wanting Black kids to get an opportunity to see agriculture in the way that I learned it to be, that I didn't get the connection to in the same way when I was in high school. So that was really a good time, and that's what led me to go to get my PhD. And then when I finished that, I fell into this faculty role. So now I'm an assistant professor at Oklahoma State University, and in that role, I continue to support Black communities in agriculture. So essentially, I see agriculture as a tool to help solve some of those problems that disproportionately impact Black communities. So whether that's, wealth, there's a huge wealth gap, a racial wealth gap in this country, whether it's nutrition, or it's just land ownership, or almost any issue that disproportionately affects Black people. I think ag can be a creative way to try to tackle some solution development. So I do that through my programming and through my outreach, like you saw with my event at Millwit, that was me bringing ag to a predominantly Black elementary school here in Oklahoma City that didn't have any formal ag education. And it was such a good time to do that. And they really enjoyed it, because my thoughts is that we can't say we want to see more diversity in agriculture, but we're not bringing ag to youth to get them exposed to it and let them see, like, is this something I could maybe find my niche in? So I do that, but then predominantly I spend my time in the classroom teaching. So I teach leadership classes, whether it's leadership theory, professional development. I teach a lot of those classes just here at Oklahoma State. So enough about me. Let's talk about the what they did piece. So I think this is super important in my personal journey, but it's also super important when you're kind of looking at the landscape of agriculture, because we talk about Black history a lot, but we don't necessarily talk about the Black contribution to agriculture. And we talk about agriculture in different ways, but we don't really frame it in a, I guess, a kind of position of resiliency. And that's what really attracted me to wanting to learn more about this. And I developed an African American agriculture class because I was just that passionate about it, because I really want to shift the narrative for pride in this area of what we have done in this industry. So with that, I'll just give you a quick snapshot of some highlight moments that I think are important. So everyone knows slavery, right? Slavery happened, slavery was terrible, but what we need to really focus on is that enslaved Africans were very intelligent, had a very strong skill set. These, when we look at the history books, they try to spin it like slaves were dumb, or, they were just servants or any of those things. But no, they really were skilled laborers from Africa. And because of the varied terrain and all the different things that are cultivated in that region, they were very skilled when they came to America. And you got to think, they came here, they were brutally treated, they didn't know the language, but they were able to build this huge economic structure in agriculture and create a huge economic boom, not only domestically, but internationally too, through trades and commodities and cash crops, cotton, all those things. You're in the South, you already know about that. But that was a skill set that was done. That's not anything to be taken lightly. It was very special what they were able to do to come over here in all that adversity and still survive. Because of them surviving is why I'm even here now. So I want to focus on what they contributed and what they did in the midst of adversity. So post-slavery, when that happened, we saw land ownership boom. So after slavery, yeah, you're free, but you weren't really free. You still had, laws and other things in place that made it hard to just maneuver and exist as a Black person in America. So with that, there was a peak land ownership. In the early 1900s, we had more land in the Black community in the early 1900s than we do today. So that should just show you the resiliency of coming out of slavery and then still trying to navigate all those laws that were, imposed to really suppress Black community. They still were able to obtain land through a numerous amount of ways. And then we still have the largest amount of Black farmers in the country. 13% of the farming population was Black at that time. So, and then we had the development of 1890 universities. Alcorn is yours. That was when Black people said, you know what, we are skilled, we are intelligent in this industry. We want to kind of take control of that. So 1890 land grants took agriculture and said, let's teach it to our community. Let's make sure that Black people know how to utilize the land to have, entrepreneurship or wealth attainment, all these things, saw it as a way out. So then we also had like the civil rights movement. So Fannie Lou Hamer, she's a Mississippian, you know what I mean? She has contributed in a major way through civil rights, but she developed through co-ops and had shared farming systems, and she saw food as a route to freedom through that movement. The New Farmers of America, kind of like FFA, Future Farmers of America, if you're familiar, New Farmers of America was the Black version of that. And there was a boom. Over 50,000 Black boys were in this organization focused on agriculture. There were so many Black teachers. It was wild. So when integration happened, it really just absorbed New Farmers of America. Black people weren't allowed to talk about it anymore, weren't allowed to really kind of embrace that past part when those students went into FFA. And you lost a lot of Black teachers during that time in ag, because those ag teachers were just a huge part of the community, especially in the South. So with that, we've kind of seen a transition into what's happening now in the Black landscape of agriculture. So like I said, it was 13% in the early 1900s. Now we only have 1.4% of the population of farmers are Black. Mississippi is second in the nation. So Oklahoma, I believe we're seventh, but you all are second in the nation. But y'all still have around only 6,000 farmers. There's less than 50,000 farmers nationwide. So that's a huge gap, right? We see now when laws aren't quite as overtly oppressive as they were in the early 1900s, but we're still not seeing that growth that other groups are seeing in the farming realm. When we look at African American agriculture education teachers, there's probably around 200, less than 200 teachers, unless that number has really shifted over the years. It's a very small group of teachers that are Black. Most of them are located primarily in the South. And then when we're seeing that land ownership, again, significant drop when we're seeing less than around 4 million acres being owned by Black people or, in that farming realm. So there's been a lot of shifts there, and there's a lot, what I like to see, even though it's super, super duper challenges, I like to see it as an opportunity to really shift the narrative a bit and find some different routes. Again, like I've really found the route of it in kind of solution development. There's a lot of things that I see back home that I'm like, man, if we could get some agricultural programming here, we could shift something there, maybe we could start to see some growth. So with that, looking at kind of what you can do in it. So there's been just this huge historical footprint that people don't really talk about as much as they should. And I know a lot of Black students that I chat with, it's just really understanding, or students in general, but we're looking kind of, especially you're wanting to go into a field that maybe you're not going to see a lot of people that look like you, or maybe you didn't grow up on a farm. I didn't. So a lot of times going into the industry, sometimes you're kind of concerned of what that experience is going to be like. But it's important for me to look back at history and say, well, maybe I didn't grow up in a farm, but there's a lot of things that my culture has contributed to this industry. So why should I feel like I don't belong there? I lean into that and I appreciate that. And I allow that to let me just kind of carve my own trail and see what that looks like. So in that, whenever I talk about agriculture, I like to say almost anything you're interested in, you can find a career path in agriculture. There's some kind of connection to it. So when we see people kind of mention ag, we see farming and all those things. I love farmers, and my farmer friends, we like this. They hook me up and they take care of me. But I'm not out there with the cattle, first thing in the morning. I'm not breaking ice. I'm not doing any of those things, but I sure appreciate it. But there's so many other things in agriculture because I'm in the field, but I'm an assistant professor. So I'm working in the classrooms at a university and I'm helping educate students as they go into their agricultural careers and prepping them for what that really looks like. I teach about leadership in the realm of agriculture. What does it look like to be an effective leader? I've done communications in agriculture, or I did graphic design and photography and videography and all those different things, but it was all in the context of agriculture. Now, those skills can certainly be transferred to other industries, but when we see agriculture and those numbers and the representation there and the limitations of that representation, it really allows you to see like, okay, there's kind of a lane I can feel here. I can find myself here. And not only that, I can encourage others to see the same. So if you're interested in saying fashion, fashion is great, but a lot of these things come from some kind of fabric, right? Especially when we're looking at different qualities of fabric. If it comes from an animal, if it comes from a plant, that's something that if you're really knowledgeable of that in the agricultural context, maybe you can find some different ways to make things more cost effective. If you're looking at like florists, people who, really specialize in that. I've met people, I love flowers, but I don't know what all goes into that. If you have a nursery, if you do want to grow, a lot of people are wanting to have their own gardens now and know where their food comes from. The science space is wide open. If you want to do something that is biology related, water quality, that's a huge issue. Climate, people really are caring about what does this look like as far as feeding the whole world with all the different environmental impacts that we have. So that's a huge space there in the science area. Engineering, we have engineering in agriculture as well. If you're wanting to look at soil quality or looking into sales, if you like finance and business, you can go into that through, you can do it through insurance, you can do it through selling feeds or, fertilizers or any of those kind of things, herbalist. So it really goes on as to what you can truly do in agriculture. And I haven't found, unless you like specialize, if you want to be a lawyer, you could still do ag law, or if you wanted to just be a doctor, but you can still look at nutrition and see different ways in which we can kind of heal the body from just what we're consuming and the quality of food. So I think there's a way to really look at agriculture as an avenue to try to cater to some of your interests. So I'll just kind of leave you with this. Just the big takeaways here is just acknowledge and celebrate history. I think when I was in high school, history seemed very boring to me, and I did not see how it was relevant. And I really challenge you, if you look at other fields outside of agriculture and you look at who you are, look at that cultural impact. So if you're not Black, you're any other part of your identity, look and see what that contribution has looked like culturally. So you can just see, okay, I can find a lane here. And if you don't find much, maybe that means you could really explore and contribute in that way. So finding your passion and your purpose and aligning that with your career and kind of your value system and what that actually looks like, what motivates you, and really try to tap into that. I found significant value in allowing that to order my steps. There's funding if you are interested in agriculture. There's 1890 scholarships that will pay for your schooling and allow you to be set up with internships and all those things, among a ton of other scholarship avenues. Manners, Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. That is an organization that has professional members, collegiate members, and junior manners, which includes, I think, middle to high, maybe even elementary. But that's another route as well of just getting involved in an organization that has a ton of different funding routes for you and taking advantage of those opportunities. A lot of my opportunities were presented to me like, hey, have you thought of this? Or, hey, you should try this. And it was just like, okay, why not? What does this look like? And, my faith system is the anchor of who I am. So I just would pray about it and figure it out and then see if it worked for me. And in most cases it did, or I would allow myself to shift and change, but finding that mission of what I wanted my impact in this world to be when I'm not on the planet anymore. So just be open to something new. If you're interested in agriculture, I'd be very happy to chat more about that, but just find your passion and fall into that and trust who you are in that, and kind of the rest will fall into place. But I'll kind of end it now with any questions that you may have.
Yeah, I'm trying to see how to stop sharing your screen. They've changed Zoom around. It's hard. Oh, there we go. All right. Now, before I get to their questions, I had a couple things I want to talk about. And before we get back to ag, because you hit on some big things, something I do always want to mention, because you mentioned that you were a Division I athlete at Austin Peay State University. I've got 9 kids in here with me right now, and almost all of them are involved in some type of sport, band, cheerleading, something. And several of them have expressed interest in playing sports or their particular activity on the college level. Now, how much of a jump in commitment is it from high school sports to college sports? Because you can't just skip practice. You can't just show it when you want to. You can't miss school the next day because you're tired. And then even on the small college level, the amount of travel is incredible. So talk about the time management and the academic commitment as well as the practice commitment of an athlete on the college level.
Yeah, it is absolutely an adjustment. And I will never forget kind of when I first went in, just even the training itself. I was a thrower in college for track. And I remember they was telling us, okay, y'all are going to run. And I'm like, are they talking to me? Because we didn't run in that same way when I was in high school. So the training was different, weightlifting, fitting that into your schedule. We had like 5 or 6 a.m. weightlifting multiple times a week. I had an 8 a.m. class, so I had to go straight from weightlifting into class. And I think the competitive nature of things too, if you're taking sports seriously, I mean, I would imagine you don't want to be a scrub out there if you really want to, compete. So I had to find different times outside of my, weightlifting and practice or my speed training to throw even more. So sometimes I'd even throw at night with a friend and just want to get better. But I still was taking 18 hours, 21 hours. My first semester was an adjustment. And some of my classes I didn't do so well. But my goal, because I always typically perform well academically, I went and my goal was to graduate with honors, and I was able to do that. So, you can have one bad semester and figure it out. And look at me now. I'm teaching other college students and telling them the same thing. So just practicing and balancing that, having a planner, and taking it seriously, because it is an adjustment, but it's something you can totally do.
And then on top of all that, you were coming and working at the Foy Center with us too. So your schedule for a college student. I really don't think people understand there is a lot of freedom, but there's also a big jump in commitment. So we encourage all of our athletes to strive for that, but I think it's important they understand what's coming. Now getting back to ag, because I thought that was a great slide there that had all the different careers on it. But we have a lot of kids that'll see this later as well that look, this may be an interesting field, but I'm not sure if I want to make the commitment to go to college. I'm not really a classroom person. So what type of careers, and I think there's a lot of them, would not necessarily need a college degree to be in the ag space? Because here in Madison County Schools, we have a unmanned aerial systems program where they can be a licensed drone pilot when they graduate high school. And I know that ag is one of the largest areas that uses drone pilots. So what are some of the other areas that may need just a career certification or even just a high school diploma?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. Some of the students that I've encountered, some of them want to go into welding. I mean, that's a skill set that in a lot of ag ed programs in high school they have, and it's very unique to that. So even just through kind of the farm management side, there's people who are managing farms that don't necessarily have, a business or management degree, and they're able to kind of work their way up through the ranks in that. And then even looking at just different art offices. So through insurance, there's different offices in insurance that you can kind of pursue and have different roles within that office that actually serve farmers in some degree. Also through extension programs. Not all extension, and extension is outreach and community engagement from a university to bring agricultural programming. There's a lot of different positions within extension offices that do not necessarily require a college degree. So looking at different pathways for certification and seeing how those skill sets would transfer into the agricultural realm is really attainable. And we have a career tech whole program here that has an agricultural arm that helps people pair with their interests if college is not the route for you. So it's certainly, wide open if you're interested in ag, but you're the college space is not really attractive, but you want to contribute in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. And even we have a great community colleges in Mississippi too, where you could get an ag certification in 9-10 months and already move into the space. Now, before you came on, we watched a couple of videos from Alcorn State and Mississippi State, which are the two universities in Mississippi that had the agriculture degree. And we saw a lot of technological advancements. So I think when people think about ag, they think you're down in the dirt, dirty, you're stepping in cow poop and all that. And that still could happen. But what are some of the technological advancements that you're seeing in ag that people may not realize needs more technologically minded people than the dirty work with your hands type of people?
Yeah, I think you touched on some of that when we're looking at drones and things like that. I mean, certainly there's a lot of different ways to canvas land, and land as far as farmland is getting fewer and fewer, and especially being owned by, individual family farms. So how we manage that land is super important. If we're looking at soil quality, different ways we can be innovative in how we are producing more, but still producing quality is super important. Looking at different ways in which we can manage our food. We talk a lot about we got to feed the world, but we don't talk a whole bunch all the time about how we actually manage the food that we have. So creating better systems for less waste in areas like that. And then even just fabric and how fabric is actually developed and the quality of fabric, weed management, the science and how we actually manage weeds that are going to pop up, producing more with a more efficiency, water usage, and like I said, with climate. So seeing like there's some, for in urban communities, how we can do a vertical farming and instead of just needing that massive land. So there's a lot of different ways in which we're trying to be smarter with agriculture and use science to help kind of expedite how we approach production.
Yeah, we had a hydroponic engineer back in October, and I was blown away when she was talking about that vertical farming. It really is something I never would have thought of. And then something I've seen I just thought was cool, and this is actually in the Texas Panhandle. These new developments in automatic milkers on cows. Like literally, it's not
Mhm.
like we see in the movies where people are squeezing them. They literally have machines that do all of it, and it just takes somebody to program them and
Right.
maintain them. There's not a lot of physical labor when it comes to that anymore.
Right. And even like there's different systems when, say, if you have a goat operation, when goats go into different feeding spaces where it tracks how much they're actually eating and then how much nutrition they're getting from it and using it. And there's a lot of people who work on farms that help with research too. So even if you don't have that degree, but you're a farm technician, you could be helping with data collection and running studies and being part of research that actually helps push agriculture forward without going the collegiate route. So there's a ton of different ways you can kind of help us feed more and waste less.
Well, I do have some great questions. I'm gonna get to as many of these as I can. So this first one is Janila Carter. She's one of our cheerleaders. She's in ninth grade. And she asks, does agriculture ever get boring to you? And have you ever faced any racism as a black agriculture professional?
Um, no, agriculture doesn't really get boring to me, and I think because I'm on the social side of agriculture, so we did talk a lot about the science piece. I'm a social science, so I study people in agriculture, and and I work with a lot of really dope people through my extension program. I have farmers and youth, so I'm blessed with my role is that I have the autonomy to create what my experience looks like, which helps me from getting bored. As far as racism, yeah, I mean, I've definitely been in situations where being black was not the most comfortable part of being in that room. And yeah, to put it lightly. But I think I was raised, or I know I was raised just to be proud of who I am and to walk into the room, even though black is what they see first. I know I'm supposed to be here. I earned my way here. So you're going to have to respect that I'm here and I'm contributing in a significant way. So adversity, I always, when I'm telling other, especially like black students who are looking at ag, is that yeah, 9 times out of 10, I hope that's not your experience. You're gonna face some racist moments or some individuals that don't really understand black culture or who you are as a black person, and that I am truly black. But if you're interested in an industry, that doesn't mean you don't belong there, and you just be your authentic self and who you are. And the people who respect that, they'll respect that. And the people who don't, you'll find a different way to work around them. So that's just been my
Love it.
experience.
I like this one. This is Callista Brown, ninth grade, one of our basketball players. And she asked, did you ever have any judgment from your family members when it comes to getting into ag? And how do you manage being a mother and wife on top of being an ag professional?
Yeah, that's hard. No judgment from my family. I think they were really excited. They're always like, whatever you do, you'll do great. So I think they were just excited for me. And it was even great to just rekindle past family history because we had land loss in my family. So understanding what that really meant to generational wealth and being able to talk. My dad was an FFA member because he was
Oh,
in high school when they integrated. So he was in FFA and just kind of talked about like when the schools integrated and what the experience was like. And I was like, wow, very interesting. So they were super supportive. And the balancing of being a mom in this role is really hard, and wife, like it's really hard. I have 2 kids, they're very active, and I try to be very present at those things, but I still got my job and I got evaluations and things that need to happen. So I do the best I can, and I try. They're alive, and I'm thankful for that, and that's a win. And I still have my job, so that's a win too. So I just pray and take it day by day and try to figure it out. I still try to play sports on the side and take care of myself and be active, which that falls off, but I just try to do my best.
Just got to get the stripes back on you.
Exactly.
All right. I have time for two more. This is Tredarius Quinn. He's in ninth grade. And he asks, what do you enjoy more in agriculture, the livestock or the plants?
The livestock. I love plants. Like I'm a plant lover in the house and I like to eat them, but being around animals is my favorite. I love when we get to go see cows, pigs, goats, sheep. It don't really matter. Anytime I can be around an animal is the best. That's my favorite.
Love it. Yeah, and I love some of the pictures of the little kids holding the some of the farm animals there at the elementary school. That was so cool.
Yeah, it was so fun. And my daughter, I brought my kids. We had a booth with my nonprofit up there. Like we made it happen, and just seeing kind of their interest in it and all that. It's animals. This is some people are animal people, but cute little animals, baby animals. Like most people want to see that.
I got one more. This is Shanaria Lewis in ninth grade, and she asked, "What's your biggest motivation to stay constantly learning about agriculture?"
I think it ties a lot into that history part. I think when I encounter people that said they want to be a part of ag, but they face financial barriers, or when I see that there's still not enough after school programs for, Black kids and they're getting caught up in the wrong things, and there's ag programs in other schools, that motivates me when I think about wealth and like what that generational wealth looks like and all the contributions we made and we're still struggling. Like that motivates me. So I think just understanding where I came from and seeing that, okay, my mission in life is to help people. And right now, in this particular chapter, is helping people through agriculture. So I want to serve people. I want to support the farmers that I work with that are so knowledgeable, but they just run into different challenges in trying to grow their operations. I want to be a support to that and use my skill set, which is not farming, but other things to try to help, embolden their existence in the field. So I just think serving others and helping others is really what motivates me to do that and like stay in agriculture.
That's awesome. Well, we're almost out of time, and as always, we thank you so much for joining us. But a couple things before we go. First of all, you mentioned your nonprofit, Agsposure. We didn't really get a lot of time to talk about that, but just tell us where we can find information about that because you're doing a lot of great things, not only in Memphis, but in the Oklahoma City area, bringing ag education to underserved communities.
Yeah, so Agsposure is my nonprofit. It's been dormant for the last few years, just moving into this professorship role. But this year is my plan to get it back off to the ground. So you may find it on social media with Agsposure, Agsposure. You may find it there and kind of see some of the past work that we've done. But my goal this year is to try to integrate, I talked about that balance struggle, is trying to find time to do that because I love entrepreneurship and I love the opportunity to create and do things without the red tape of like, can I do this? I like the control.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to do this and I'm going to do this. So
Love it.
finding me on those social media platforms would be best.
That's awesome. Well, now the last thing before we go, and it's still hard to believe that when we met 18 years ago that we're here today, and that's just such a blessing to me. But
Mm.
as we close, just why should these kids really consider getting into a career in ag, especially these young Black kids? Because you mentioned on the disparity of Black agriculture professionals. So why does this field desperately need them to strongly consider getting involved in it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, it's been forever and I can't believe it. But hey, me being an ag is giving us another reason to stay in touch. Not that it's the only,
Yeah.
but another reason. But I think it's important when I look at that history part is that those people were facing a lot bigger challenges than I face, right? Like it was a different time in the early 1900s, 1800s in America and before that. Like it was hard. So I look at it as that it's an opportunity to find, a good career, stability, and, a pathway to building some kind of wealth. So why not give it a try? You're going to try to find some kind of career, right? Why not go into an industry where they're, especially like in managers, you'll see there are a lot of people that want to create support for you and community. Even though you're facing challenges, you can find others to support you. So just give something different a try. And if you don't like it, you can always try something else. Like all these industries are going to be here. You can move on, but just explore agriculture agriculture, talk to, people at your universities or career tech, anything, like find different people to connect with and try to see if it's a space for you in it based on your interests.
Love it. Well, as always, we thank you so much for starting us off this semester on such a great field. Dr. Courtney Jordan Brown, all the way from the Ferguson College of Agriculture and Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I enjoy it. Y'all go out and make the world a little better. Thanks for having me. You're amazing. Got an amazing teacher with you, so lucky you.
I appreciate it. You're amazing yourself. But I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. Bye.